This is Cherie Ray with Connected Living, conversations on truths and understandings for a simpler ride for the business of life. I hope you enjoy this episode. Thanks everybody for joining this conversation on decisions. I'm so intrigued. I mean, I've got what I want to, what came to me about it, but I'm curious, what interested you guys about decisions? Marcia.
Well, I was trying to make a decision. I mean, I was called back to work June 1st and been going in kind of spottily. And it doesn't feel super safe as far as the PPE situation or consider essential services. So I didn't have to go. I don't need the money, but I live by myself and I wanted to be around people. And I don't know. So I went through a huge, I did it with my therapist actually. I decided I would go back to work and do this election, even though I'll make less money than my employment. And it'll be a huge hassle. But it feels important because it is an essential service, and I feel like I will be of service. So I made that decision. The risk to my health is much greater because I'm going to be out in the public.
Mm, mm,
In
yeah.
Texas, cases are rising dramatically.
So overall, with decisions, does the group have a good relationship with decisions? Does your relationship with decisions shift and change? Is it consistent? I mean, just how do you experience them? Linda P.
My tendency is to agonize.
Oh, okay.
My
Okay.
tendency is to, oh my God, I have to look at just one more thing before I can make up my mind about this, and research it until it's half dead. and then still second guess myself afterwards.
Oh, good. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God, what have I done? Did I, maybe I should have, and I think I think that's an old conversation. I don't think I do that nearly as much as I used to.
Oh, good.
Yeah. But, yeah, because so I'm just thinking back to the last kind of big economically impactful decision I made was buying my car a couple of years ago. And I just, I went shopping and I looked in Consumer Reports or somewhere and okay, these are the ones I should look at. So I narrowed the field down really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And none of those felt right. So I opened the field up a little bit more and then went out again. And then, when I got in the car that I wound up choosing, I was like, okay, I've looked enough. This is good. And, so it didn't feel like that kind of agonizing decision that it might have felt like in the past. So I think I'm getting better at it, but anyway.
I never thought about what you just said. I never thought about it, but like having a decision hangover. So like regardless of what
you never do that.
I never thought about a decision hangover. I mean, in the sense of no matter what you pick. I mean, well, now that I can't say that. Now that I think about it, when it goes in the days when you'd go to a restaurant, it wouldn't matter what I picked. The decision hangover would have been I should have picked that. So whatever, but
yeah.
But that's a good thing to see how and the cleverness of our mind. It wouldn't matter what we pick. We're going to get backlash.
Oh, absolutely. There's always something that you didn't think about, or that after the fact, you become aware of something about the product that you bought that you
Mhm.
didn't even think, that wasn't even in your list of criteria. And suddenly you've got a whole new set of stuff to,
Yeah.
lash out at yourself about. Why
Yeah.
didn't you think of that? But,
Good point.
like I said, I think I'm getting better.
Excellent. Excellent. Anybody else want to share how their relationship with decisions goes?
Cherie, I'd love to share a story
Please.
about
Go, Teresa.
decisions that Martin and I remembered this morning. So we've been married 45 years, and at about 7, 8 years, we were in marriage counseling, and the biggest issue about us was that we couldn't make decisions. It was like it would bring up stuff. We'd have the hardest time choosing. I mean, really, the truth was we weren't even sure we really even wanted to be together, so there was like indecisions all the time, and we hadn't learned any kind of cadence about it like we really have much more about now. I mean, I personally find it very similar to when we choose, our intuition tells us what image to put in the painting. It's that kind of, at what point do we know it's real and we follow it? And, so that's more what current day is. But here's what the therapist did. So he used a lot of neuro-linguistic programming. That was I don't know if you're all familiar with that. So he asked us to do this process. He asked us to get a baked potato and put it in the microwave or the oven and get it really, really hot. And to stand for every year that we were married 1 foot apart. And to begin discussing the whole decision by throwing the potato back and forth at each other and catching this hot potato. And this is absurd, but it actually happened. We really did it. And as we are deciding, as we are discussing, it is amazing how, potato flying everywhere and your hands are hot. The decision will just come and you can't volley forward enough once you realize what it is. It's like, well, of course, So he had us do that just so that we could basically get out of our own way. But I wanted to share that because both of us were remembering how totally absurd. I mean, I remember if you could have seen our mouths drop open when he said, okay, here's what I want you to do. I was like, okay. So anyway, I just share that.
What you say, Trudy, is spot on. It's like if we realized that the only thing between us and a decision is me getting in my own way,
Right.
that particular exercise, you had to take your eye off the decision and put your eye on the potato. You know what I mean? So
you're kidding. I thank God he's not asking us to do it at 45 years.
You had to quit staring at staring at the big D word, and when we get if we get out of ourselves, the decision's right there,
Right. It's right there.
It's underneath all of that analysis and thinking and wrangling and figuring out and struggling. It's underneath all that. It's just right there. But in our innocence, we think all that wrangling is getting us to clarity. But it's exactly the opposite.
Right.
It creates distance from clarity, not brings you to clarity.
Right. But it's okay, it's like at the same time, it's all, if you see it as how you dance. And what I always call it is following the thread. Like people ask us all the time about Martin's health and how we figure out what doctor to get and how we've gotten to where we've gotten. And for those of you who don't know, Martin lives with cancer. And he's in a really good place with it, but it's been a lot of years. And people are always asking us this question. And it is an inner listening. It is a following, a listening. Somebody will tell you something and you're going, oh, I was supposed to hear that, right? And then the next thing you know, you're following that thread and it leads to something. Mm-hmm. It takes tenacity. Mm-hmm. It takes believing. It takes trusting. It takes perseverance. You can't leave any of those out. Martin wants to say something.
And I think there's also a place where where you just have to choose. I mean, you do your research, you inform yourself as best you can, and that doesn't always mean you're going to make the right decision. You just have to choose.
Right.
And in that, you have to know that you're going to live with the consequence. I'm going to make this choice, and if it's right, great. And if it's not, well, that's just the consequence, and I will live with that too.
Mm-hmm.
But you gotta just move past these things and make the choice. I remember one time I had a job where I had a lot of decisions that needed to be made, and I got stuck right in the very beginning of that by wondering, well, am I making the right decision? And what if I make the wrong decision? Who's going to say this about whatever? And then I finally just realized, this is my job. I'm in the seat of responsibility. I need to make these decisions and live with the consequence. And if the consequence is wrong, then I'll learn from that, make it different next time. Life is too short to just wrangle and choke on things like that,
The other gift of living with cancer.
Yeah.
But we've also realized, I just want to add this, that when you make the choice and you do it because you think it might be right, and this happened to be a particular doctor someone told us about, he's got the right to do, for this to, handle what you're dealing with. We got there, we did all of it. We went to great lengths to get there, flew there, did all this, and literally a knock came on the door when the man was talking to us, and he got pulled out of the room, and we never saw him again. And we're standing there looking at each other, what just happened? And we literally knew that was not the right decision. We were not in the right with the right doctor.
That's where trust comes in.
Yeah. And then it became, once we learned more about what he was really dealing with, oh my God, it would have been disastrous. He wouldn't still be here.
Oh, wow.
So isn't that fascinating? So it's not just doing it and accepting the consequences. It's that bigger trust that if you do it and you're so, if your goal is to be in alignment with grace and the alignment with that thread, you will get led out of that. You can trust that if it's the wrong thing, you'll get somebody will knock on the door, which literally happened.
Absolutely. And what occurred to me too was like what I hear is typically is people go through a list of pros and cons when they're making, when they're faced with a decision. They really think a pro and con list is helpful. And if you kind of look back and say, where did that pro and con list come from? And how come my pro and con list isn't the same as yours? Or hers, or his, or hers. It's like, so it's a good thing to catch on that why it seems to be logically clever and smart to make the pro and the con list, that if it's not based on something stronger than your life experience, what's done in your culture, like what's, I think it gets real fascinating what pros and cons are. It's so subjective. It's so subjective to what you've been exposed to in life. So it's like, okay, wait a minute. If I'm being offered like a brand new opportunity and I just draw from my life experience, how much fresh new opportunity do we push away? Because it doesn't match, what's acceptable in our tribe, what's acceptable to, what, all these different kinds of things that, and I always think too, it's kind of clever how with decisions on fresh topics, we oftentimes take them and then run them through our insecurities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And are we really qualified? Are we too close to the situation to really make an honest pro and con list?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's why you need a personal coach, everybody, and there's a good one in this room.
I know, and I think that's so funny but when I saw that, it's like, oh my gosh, I run it through all my insecurities and think it's going to give me a solid, go for it, girl, go for it. It's like, no, I'm like asking the scaredy cats is this a good idea? And they're like, no, 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 you know. But the scary cats are 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 you know, they're just scaredy cats. They're not, again, they're not truth of life saying, they're not encouraging, I guess. They can just kind of scare you. So that part about the pros and the cons, it's like, gosh, what if that just shakes the snow globe and creates more distance from clarity? What if all of that wrangling with the pro and the con list just, and I run it through my insecurities, and I can't understand why I'm not saying excited about an idea, because to like Linda's point is like, you have an idea, and even getting, I guess it would be inspiration hangover. Like, you get all excited about maybe an opportunity, and then you have time for the inspiration hangover to come over, and it comes back on you like, oh well, you know, for whatever reason. Whatever reason, it comes back on you, and then you're like, oh man, that was, what happened to the fun part of that? Well, we just buzz killed it. You know, it's a total buzzkill to like ask the party poopers to get on board, and they're like not gonna get on board. They don't want to be on board.
You know, Cherie, the way I look at that is, especially in thinking about, should we go back to work? Should we open up the churches? So on, are we going to go out to eat? And then you making the reference to asking someone who's a scaredy cat, or I think that was your term. And it dawned on me a couple of weeks ago that when your reward becomes greater than the risk, you're going to do it. And so the reward for me might be different than the reward for some of you. So I'm going to go out to eat, for example, because that the reward for that means something to me. So in other words, the reward to your people that you're referring to as scaredy cats, that reward is not greater than their risk. So they're going to just sit in their seat. So I don't know. I kind of like looking at it that way. What is your reward? Is your reward greater than the risk in going back to work? Is the reward greater to be around people and get back than just sitting at home? And to some people, they would say yes. So
Yeah.
Let's go do it.
That's a great point. That's a great point. And I think the place of decision, I think we get cause and effect confused, and then we can call the effect a consequence. Now, consequences, again, to me, different than cause and effect. Consequence goes back to the subjective nature of our mind, and just like Diane's saying, it's like, okay, a consequence is going to be personal to me, in the place where how comfortable can I be with being uncomfortable regardless of the outcome?
Cause and effect is energy.
Right. So it's like, okay, you take the job or you don't take the job. I think about that this guy on Jeopardy my mother kept telling me about, that he was like a professional gambler, and he played Jeopardy, and so he would, every time he won some money, he would bet the house, and I watched that one day with her, and I was like, wow. I was like, what if decisions we were all professional gamblers, and we just bet the house's money, we play like we're playing on the house's money, make a decision, and don't look back. Because if we knew the incredible wisdom that is supplying our life, that regardless of the outcome, we're going to be supplied with fresh ideas, solutions. If I don't get terribly distracted by the temporary discomfort of what has happened. So there could always be cause and effect, but what if the consequences are completely made up. And they have to be made up ahead of time because it hadn't happened. So something has to engage with to happen to then have an outcome. And then if we hold it much lighter, like the dude on Jeopardy, you know, play on the house's money, no consequence to loosen the pot. You answer the next question on Alex Trebek and you move on. You know? So how does that land in there about the difference between cause and effect or consequence or freedom to play on the house's money?
Well, that all seems like stories that we would tell ourselves. And like you're saying, you know, you might tell, like you could ask 5 people sometimes about a decision, or you're just 1 or 2, and they're going to give you different answers. Mm-hmm. So it sort of seems like that there's a lot of ideas about it all, but we really don't know. So you may as well just bet the house's money. And I just think, like, even sometimes when my husband and I catch ourselves really into a deep argument about a decision, we just say, we learned this from you very much so, that, you know, we could take turns making decisions, you know, and then cut out all the right, wrong about each other about it. Mm-hmm. And I also think this whole COVID thing, where so many decisions in our life are being made not by us, it's sort of training us about, we really have no idea in the present about the future. So bet the house.
Yeah. Well, and that, to your point, Linda, you see how your wisdom served up at the time you needed it. Okay, we'll take turns making these decisions. That's precisely the well that we can drink from around these decisions. Like, you know, just make one, and then if it doesn't work out, you know, according to how my mind made up it should work out, then I'm going to argue with reality, you know, or argue with how it happened. That again, if we can just be with ourselves long enough to get comfortable, or even just not be as bothered by being uncomfortable, fresh thinking will come. Yeah. Fresh thinking will come, because I think the part about prior to a decision, I really wanted to point to that it's all made up. You know, it's all made up.
Yeah.
For so many of our interpersonal decisions, you know, we're not talking about a engineering experiment or physics or something like that where it's numbers driven. I'm talking about in the emotional realms and the decisions of life, when it all kind of gets a little blurred lines.
And I think sometimes we don't like not knowing.
Oh, that's part of it. Absolutely.
But the truth is, we don't know about the future, but we don't want to. That's the uncomfortableness. We don't want to know. We don't know about it.
Right.
You know.
Right. And I think that's what's gotten so many people disturbed, is there's realization of how little control they had about their life. You know, they really thought they were at the command station pulling all the levers. Martin, what were you going to share, please?
I was going to say, it seems to me that there is another element now with this situation going on that maybe we've never had before as strongly as we do, and that is, we have to weigh, when we make a decision now, how does this affect somebody else? When I make a decision to go out, and believe me, I don't, but I know a lot of people do. If I make a decision to go out, I'm not going to wear a mask. Okay? Well, I got to think about, you know, well, this is not just because I'm hot or because I'm uncomfortable, but it's because there's somebody else out there that is compromised in some way that I may affect. Mm-hmm. Or how do I know that I haven't been exposed to this virus over the last week or 10 days, and I'm contagious and I don't know it, but I'm going to go out and do whatever the hell I want to do and affect, several other people.
Mm-hmm.
There's an element now of making a decision in our world that we cannot just think of ourselves. We got to think of the other person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's an invitation to something much more higher consciousness than our society has really been into for a long time.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
Just to think about that. Like I went to Trader Joe's yesterday, first time in a grocery store since all this happened. And I had been hearing what a great place it was to go and how controlled they were. Well, corporate decided to change the rule about masks. So now it's by choice. And suddenly I'm standing there and 5 people come out of the store and they have no mask on. And I'm thinking, holy moly. I just, I came and now I'm suddenly putting myself in harm's way. And we had just been told by Martin's main oncologist how important it is I'm saying this so that everybody hears it, that when you go in a closed environment, so it's a grocery store, it's not so bad, but let's just say a really closed environment, that if not everyone's wearing a mask, he said, you need to get out of there right now. He said, because it requires both people wearing a mask. And that's how you stop this, is that if everybody wears a mask, it's an aerosol type thing. It really isn't getting out or getting anywhere,
No, this is from one of the top research doctors at MD Anderson. So there's some credibility behind
Yes.
his.
And he's saying, I just tell you what he said. This was just yesterday. He's saying that he thinks that July and August is going to be one of our worst times and that it's going to surge again and we're not going to be prepared. So just saying that he said that. Now he's speaking to somebody with cancer. So you have to take that into consideration. But it for the first time, I'm doing something that creates joy for me. And I'm angry that I'm having to dodge everybody who's not being considerate. And I wanted to stand there and say, do you realize the choice you're making is causing da-da-da-da-da? And then I thought, no, I'm not going to get into right, wrong here. But I do think that where we are making decisions about our lives right now has a different criteria.
There's a different dimension.
It's a distinction. And yet, I want to just add something. I think the natural inclination of the human experience, in my opinion, is to move towards joy.
Well,
and I think that if we turn on the news, it's going to tell us to pull back into our fear. And those things are at odds with each other. Joy, fear, where do I stand in that? And I think it is really important that we listen to how even from a fresh viewpoint, given that we have this situation, it's not going to go on forever, but this is where we are now in 2020, that out of that, how do we have more joy? And I am blown away by most people I know, and certainly in this household, we are amazed at how many untapped possibilities of joy have come in to this more boundary life that we live, this careful boundaried life. Once again, somebody with cancer has different reasons. I can't get it because he'd get it. So they're my reasons too. Mm-hmm. But I think it's so important to realize that certain decisions that come up to be made are saying, go for joy. And all of us can now realize we think we've got control over how long we live. We don't. None of us do. Mm-hmm. And it's more so than ever now because we're vulnerable. Look at the statistics. We're vulnerable. So I just wanted to say that I think we go for joy, daggone
it. I love that.
Too. And it comes in various cool ways of thinking and doing. It doesn't have to be the same ones we always knew.
I had a good friend in high school in Trinity. I always laugh about this. Her mother said to her, you have got to make your own fun. Yep. And that's how life is right now. You got to make your own fun.
Yeah. And Cherie, when I think of you as somebody who's always doing that.
Well, and
Yeah.
I think your
Yes.
point is about getting, the more we get in the present moment, in the same way we've looked for joy outside of us, and in that same place where decisions reside, if we get more present, that's where we're going to find joy. That's where it exists in the present moment, not in the next vacation or not in the next this or that, which I think is an opportunity to wake up to, because we really were under that illusion that, and in bringing it back to decisions, like I'll still say that you can't make a wrong decision.
I think that's true.
Right. I agree with you. You can't make a wrong decision. That's only because we tell ourselves it's a wrong decision.
Exactly. And if we elevate our way of being, like I think we're being asked to do, we really will see that there's, like the painting process, you can't make mistakes. It's not right or wrong.
I mean, even if we get the dang virus, it's because we made a decision. We were free and clear about making it, and that's how it turned out.
Right.
It's that distinction about not living in fear all the time. I got to do everything so that I don't get it.
In some way of controlling my world. I'm thinking that's the part about you make wise decisions for you, and we're expanding that. I think we're expanding that solitary existence, to really what is, hopefully it's a more unified decision, but in that place of like, wait a minute, there's not a wrong decision. I can't, if I hold that belief that there's a wrong decision and there's going to be some detrimental outcome to me, you are creating suffering for yourself.
Right.
So needlessly, because you're discounting your capacity of resilience and your own source of wisdom that's going to bring you back up.
And I love your saying that in the painting process, you can't make a mistake. I'm so grateful that I met you, Cherie, because I decide many times when I just start to get nuts that I'm just going to go and do a collage, or I'm going to do something creative, and that takes care of it. As if I've taken some amazing drug.
Exactly. And Linda, that's the same thing of Trudy and Martin tossing the hot potato. You took your eye off of the so-called issue, and you found where peace resides. And peace is not microscopically drilling down into an issue thinking if I weed through some more of this, that's where I'll find my answer and my clarity. It's like, no, look away. So both of your examples, the hot potato and stop staring at it, is going to be, then what happens is all the snow in the globe settles and voila, there's your answer. It was there all the time, but you couldn't see it behind all the stirred up snow. But in our innocence, we keep the snow globe shaking. In our innocence, we think what we're doing is wise, smart, to our benefit. Look in every corner. Check the back of the closet, don't leave any stone unturned. You don't want to get duped, you don't want to be the one with egg on your face. All that stuff. But to your point, Trudy, is like all that stuff is just mitigating fear that was made up by wherever it got made up. And we can get onto that. It's just not helpful.
Or just, nurture whatever we can, that our natural state is to experience joy. Mm-hmm. And so every time we give in to that big onslaught of things that take us into, 100 million ways to think negative about life. Just turn on the
100 million things in life that scare me,
You'll get all you need right there. And we all kind of do need to listen to the news just so we know what's going on. But, it's got a different color every day, and of all the reasons we should be afraid. So it reminds me more and more. And I just want to say one other thing that I've learned about making decisions that I think helps a lot is, so we're trying to make a big decision about something right now that'll be costly. So you kind of got in there going, is this real?
The price of poker's going up.
Yeah, the price, it went up. So it's a big, and it's got a big price tag, and should we really be spending this money? All that stuff that goes on. So that's all stuff. But what I notice is, as we get into the research and all the things one has to do to make this choice, I only have to ask myself one question, and that is, what's the next action? And if I just do that, and it gets prompted from within, just like we're painting again, and what the next action is go put the paintbrush in the red paint, right? That's kind of how it goes. It's like if I just do that and I follow that one thing through, what would the next action? I'll either get derailed and say, yeah, this isn't for us, or I'll get the next action. Mm-hmm. And it all of a sudden gets really simple. We just keep following what's the next action.
It does. I just love the idea of demystifying these decisions, or demystifying all of this booga booga prior to making a decision. I love the demystifying that. And that's what really, so one of those many things I learned from the painting process is, like, really the only thing you can do is the next simple step that makes sense to you.
Right.
On anything.
The next right thing. Yep.
And it doesn't even have to be the right thing, but you have to engage with it. You can't just
the next thing. Right, I got it.
Yeah, just, sometimes we'll just sit and we'll, we're like this whirlpool of concern, and we're just whirling. And we don't know why we're getting so tired. And we don't know why we're exhausted. We're sitting in the same chair and we're just whirling all of the scenarios and trying to figure it out and trying to see something, when all of that just puts blindfolds on us.
Okay, so Cherie, then I need to ask you a question here, because, we've all probably been into this position too, where we get so open. This is once again in the painting process, because it's so metaphoric to this. We're so open, and we've gotten that clear image that wants to come in and wants to be painted by us, and we know it's the one. And then the next thing you know, they just start coming in so fast that we can't keep up, right? And this happens to me in life a lot. I get so inspired, I'm just an idea a minute. Mm-hmm. And I don't know which one to grab and which one to do, to the point that I end up overwhelmed.
Right.
So can you just speak about what I just talked about, even if you just talk about it in the painting process of what happens?
Totally. Because I relate to that so much, because I'm a idea factory. I mean?
Them too.
All the time. But what happens is, if you stay in the present moment, I mean, really just stay where you are, just what's the next thing for you to do, those ideas that are coming in with legs will start walking. You see what I mean? Otherwise, we can just keep having ideas coming out, and then we're all over the place, thinking we're like a butterfly net, trying to catch them all, and so we've kind of left the present moment, and we're getting this butterfly net and trying to catch all this, and it's like, wait a minute, right here, right now, we can trust that our wisdom is gonna serve us up the next inspiration. You see, and we discount that. And we discount that the idea that the ideas that are meant for me, I'll say, in a way, not to make it all kind of grand orchestration, but they'll come with legs, kind of like when we paint an image, or we don't paint an image, and it comes back around, and it comes back around, and then you're like, okay, I'll just paint it, It's the same thing. Or you'll find yourself taking steps on something that came to you, and it wasn't on your to-do list, and you didn't make plans, but all of a sudden you're drawn to go, I don't know, you're drawn to Google up something, or and that happens, but all that happens in the present moment, not in that swirl. So it's like trusting, or I'll say trusting, or also seeing the operating system, that I don't have to worry about all of these ideas that are coming. Because as human beings, we are designed for fresh thought. We are designed to receive fresh inspiration. It's not magical.
That's good.
It's not magical.
It's
You
part
know,
of the joy.
absolutely. And I mean, it's mysterious in the way of like, wow, how come that never occurred to me before? Well, it may be mysterious, but it's not magical. You didn't have to, you know, drink a certain kind of tea on a Tuesday to make it happen. You know, it wasn't that kind of magic, but it is mysterious how things show up that just weren't there before. And also when these ideas come on these decisions, or the decision doesn't come, I'll say, there's wisdom in that too. It oftentimes it's just like cycles in nature. They ripen on their own,
Mhm.
which I find fascinating. Like, I mean, I have one recently that I got this first inspiration like 2 years ago, and I thought I would push it through.
Yeah.
Uh-uh. I mean, I pushed a bit and I got a piece, and then it was like it went flat, like uh, uh, just flat as a soda water left out all night. You know, no cap on it. It was flat, and just recently, it kind of tapped me on the shoulder, and I looked in that direction, and it was so easy and obvious how it could happen that within like 5 days the people showed up to do it. It's in the process of getting done. And I was like, wow. So there's a
I love
maturity
that.
to decisions that happen like that too. You know, so you're not going to have missed opportunities. If it's
I
meant for
love that.
you, it's gonna come on out.
Yeah. Ripening, giving respect to what needs to ripen in a decision-making process even.
Right. And I think our culture too, like with decisions, we think if we don't complete something, we start something and we don't complete it, the decision or the not, you know, you just don't finish it. It's kind of like a decision by default, or you just didn't do it. We make up somehow that, again, that means something about us, or we failed, or we can't stick to anything, when in reality it's like, well, how do we know in this mystery that we're playing with that its life cycle stopped right where it was for you? You got what you got the juice you needed, and that's all you need. Don't worry about it. Let it go.
That was really important that you said that. Yeah, I'm one of those that really
Totally.
gets upset with myself when I don't finish them.
And then we stay, and then all of that stuff distracts us from the present moment, and then if everything seems harder, or that we personalize so much of it that we made up it needed to be finished. We don't know what its life cycle was.
Hmm.
And you'll see
Yeah.
that in the painting process too. The more you paint or the more you create, the more you live. I'll even put it that way. I'll widen the scope of the aperture of the camera on this one. That you'll really see that. But the painting process is such a perfect example. You don't need a decision in the painting process. There is nothing to decide in creativity. Nothing. Because your creative process does not need you. It is much bigger than what my opinion of is going on. It's like it needs my participation, but it I'm not the conductor of that game. So that's, again, to me, one of the great benefits of the intuitive painting process is you realize, God, there's nothing to decide. If I get present, something occurs to me. If I get present, something occurs to me. If I
That's
get
a great
present, something
distinction.
occurs to me.
That's a really great distinction, Cherie, because we're just sort of its servant, aren't we? Right? Because you had me there for a minute. I thought, well, I made the decision to take the brush and stick it in the paint. and walk back over, that was me making the decision. So I was arguing with you a bit, and then all of a sudden I got it, what you're saying.
Have you, when you painted and you go to the table and you're like, no, I didn't want that color. And it's like, I didn't mean to do that. It's like, well, that me didn't mean to do that, but the bigger wisdom that was getting that brush to the paint knew exactly where it was going.
That's it. Such a great metaphor, this painting process.
It is. It is such a lab for life,
It is a lab for life, and it is so benign. It's so wonderful to have something benign.
Totally. It is so benign, but we don't see life as benign.
Mm-mm. Definitely not.
We don't see ourselves as resilient, regardless of our decisions. I think we cheat ourselves. We discount this system that we are infinitely resilient. We are oriented to potential and possibility, and we give all this power to decisions or to my mind in the moment, and it's like, no.
Wow.
I mean, I'm sure if we looked at our own personal life story, and if anywhere along the line somebody had said that to you, that in 10 years you would be doing this, or, like that, we would be going, no, that's not me. But our life has taken on its own life, right?
Absolutely.
Like a year ago, if somebody had said this would happen, we would have all said no,
Or that we'd be resilient at times like this. We go,
yeah.
If I had to stay home, I'd be crazy. Whatever you may.
Yeah.
Same thing.
And the truth is, we really don't know.
Ever.
I haven't thought of the ever part. I'm going to add the ever. That's fabulous. Because, Einstein used to say that all the time. Like the most brilliant thing you could ever say is, I don't know.
Yeah. That's a sign of true wisdom. It really is.
Yeah. So I'm going to add ever, though. That's great. To remind myself.
Well, I think it's like we can't know. So don't put these expectations on ourselves. We can't.
Yeah.
We cannot know. And then we think we've been made a fool out of, or duped, or whatever we make up. A fool's game or whatever. And no, the fool thinks they know. But as human beings, I think it's such an easier ride to take a deep breath and relax and play with that idea that there are no mistakes and you can't get it wrong. And whatever the outcome, you're going to be good. I think it's more fun, play on the house's money, because it's like if that didn't work, something else it's a trajectory to go in a fresh direction.
Yeah.
You can't get it wrong. Just like it's a painting process, you can't get it wrong. I just love that.
Yes. Wouldn't that be amazing if we told kids that, like from day one at school, no matter what, you can't get it wrong?
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't that be amazing? Wouldn't that be amazing? Yeah.
I'm wondering if there's some people that haven't spoken at all that are waiting for the rest of us to give them a break. So I'm looking at some other names and I'm wondering what they're thinking. Like,
Well, let me open the floor and just see if
Penny, for your thoughts.
would anyone like
Yeah,
to
I was wondering when you guys were going to shut up.
Yeah, I know it. We're just dialoguing away.
Oh, God.
Well, the invitation stands. Please share.
Well, the thing that has struck me in this whole conversation, excuse me for backtracking, but just thinking about, the process of the usual process of making a decision of, looking at all these pros, cons, possibilities, historical data, and it's all historical data.
Mm-hmm.
It's all based on a past and a past version of myself and how I reacted to a particular pro or con
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And it may or may not have anything to do with who I am right in this moment and what I want right in this moment and how and how my life is right in this moment. And so that's just, that's just really given me some food for thought about, wow, why am I so attached to all those pros and cons, all those past thoughts, all those,
That's a really good point, Linda, because I love what you say, because it's like we're ever changing human beings, and our state of mind is ever changing.
Yeah, yeah.
If I was in that's always fluctuating too. So I'm not the same person, and I know my mind is probably not in the same place it was when I made the decision on whatever I made the decision on. So that fluctuates on the inside. So nothing is really the same.
Yeah, yeah.
This meat suit might appear to be the same, but that's everything on the inside is completely in a fluctuating state all the time.
Yeah. And for me, this guess what? This always comes back to my dating life or lack thereof. I mean, that's that's the thing in my presence right now is, where is the one and why hasn't he showed himself yet?
Time to play on the house's money,
Yeah. And what I'm beginning to realize is every time I meet a new guy, and I'm doing the online dating thing, heaven help me. But every time I meet a new guy, I'm a different person from the last guy I met.
Good point. Good point.
And everything I'm bringing to this moment of, okay, what do I want here, and how am I going to respond to something he said or whatever. It's in this moment, and it doesn't have, hopefully it's not limited and determined by something I thought about some guy 10 years ago or 5 years ago or 3 months ago.
To your point, Linda, hopefully if the more present you are in the moment, your wisdom will inform you.
Yeah.
And let all of that stuff go.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm just like, and right now, I'm thinking, and this is what I'm doing, which is making me crazy.
The snow globe. You're shaking the snow.
Yeah, I'm shaking the damn snow globe because I was corresponding with this guy because that's all we could do, and suddenly he disappeared, and I kind of accidentally got back in touch with him, and I'm like,
what was I thinking?
What? I was trying to find out, why did he just disappear? And what he's saying is like, are you kidding me? Crazy. He sounds nuts. And I'm like, okay,
Well,
I mean, a month or two ago, I thought he was a great guy.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, are you kidding me?
Well, that's that fluctuating state of being.
Yeah. I hate to
interrupt you, Linda, but I'm gonna have to stop because I'm looking at the time and I want to be respectful.
Oh, got it. Yeah.
I apologize for interrupting.
No,
you.
that's okay.
So, just to kind of bring our time together to a close, because I want to try to be respectful of time, is just to say that demystifying decisions and relaxing and doing just the next thing that makes sense to you is going to expand, your, I'll say, spiritual confidence in yourself and your ability and what you need to know when you need to know it. And our mental self has such a small definition of what we're capable of. So truly, you can't make a wrong decision. You can't. There's the only consequences are the ones that you make up. And knowing that discomfort's just a temporary state of being, it's going to change. You're going to get inspired to move.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I just wanted to thank you all so much for coming. I appreciate it always to get to see you guys. Thank you for joining the conversation today on decisions.